And hello, welcome to our viewers out there watching this recording. We are the Unschooling Squad presenting conversations on living learning. My name is Deanna Kluth, and we have Anna Maria. Well, I'll let everybody introduce themselves. This is a very casual conversation. We have our guest Evon with Forever Unschooled here today. And Evon is an African woman, mama, transformational life coach, and accomplisher of all that she puts her mind to. She and her two daughters, who are 18 and 25, have been on an unschooling journey that now spans over 10 years. As a single mom, diagnosed with mental illnesses, PTSD, generalized anxiety disorder, bipolar disorder, and major depressive disorder, and a refined food addict and overeater in recovery, Evon finds it a blessing to have discovered unschooling when she did, and is grateful to continue to learn and apply as their lives evolve. Committed to helping other families, she created online community Forever Unschooled and is happy to offer an unschooling motivational support toolkit, which we will share linked in the description below, which contains a new ebook, Let Go or Be Dragged, Learning the Healing Art of Letting Go, in which she shares her story, life realizations, and self-care, SELFCARE, the 8-step process she created to sustainably learn the sacred art of divine self-care and successfully let go of ideas and people that aren't positively contributing to our lives. Private one-on-one unschooling lifestyle coaching, 5 tips that have helped her on this unschooling journey, more self-care ideas, ways to supplement income, assist in living expenses, a blog, resources, and more. She thinks it's important for people to know she doesn't wear a cape. She burned it a long time ago. Every day, she continues to learn how to sustainably face life's challenges while thriving in spite of it all. For more info on Evon and her daughter's endeavors, you can visit the www.abundanceisourbirthright.com, and that will be linked too. So without further ado, I will say that the Unschooling Squad greets you from the sacred unceded lands of the Lenape, where we connect with our ancestral heritage and the ancestors of this land to work to honor and remember these ways of raising our children that live within our blood and bones. So thank you for joining this conversation, Evon, to share your experience and deep, deep, profound wisdom with us and the work we value so much.
Thank you all for being here on the Unschooling Squad. It's a privilege for sure. Yeah, it's definitely a privilege, and I'm grateful to be able to share with you all what unschooling has been like for us over the last 10 years.
The sound was lagging a little bit, so I think we were all kind of pausing to see as you came back. But I'll just say hi, I'm Lisa. I have
Hi, Lisa.
I'm also 10 years into the unschooling journey, but my kids are younger, and yeah, we're so happy you're here. Talking to other people who are choosing this and making it work is always so helpful to all of us. So I appreciate it. And yeah, I'll just let Anna Maria introduce herself and then we'll get into it.
Hi, Evon and folks out there in the interwebs. My name is Anna Maria and I have 3 children as well. oldest 16, middle 14, and youngest 9. We've been on this journey the whole time, but unschooling has been at different degrees, right? It took me a long time to get to, oh, I have to deschool, and then sort of control consent issues, trying to work through that. So I think that we're just arriving at the place of understanding how unschool and Indigenous ways of being kind of connect. And so this is a space that I'm in right now, is really exploring collectivism through unschooling, what that looks like. Yeah, so I'm really excited to hear your journey as well. And what I would suggest, just in terms of this conversation, is we're really interested in your learning experience, what you have found, the nuggets of wisdom on your 10 years, the stages that you've gone through, and then just so fascinated by this time in your life with your children of transitioning them to the next step, whether it's college or higher learning or business, or, there's just, your experience just has so much richness. And yeah, just take it away.
Okay. Well, thank you all again for your introduction and for having me here today. Again, I'm Evon, and we have been at this for over 10 years now, Forever Unschooled. And originally, what led me to unschooling was realizing that I had birthed 2 young ladies who were anything but cookie cutter. And being a single mom with a 7-year gap between my children, there is only so much time in the day. And discovering unschooling after already having been researching homeschooling for over 7 years, because I started researching homeschooling when my youngest daughter, who is now 18, was born. That's when dots started being connected, that because I was a teen mom with my oldest daughter, and dots were not being connected at that point. But 7 years later, when I birthed my youngest daughter, that I actually had time, because I was in a different place than as a teen mom, to think about and hear myself and my intuition in regards to what the journey, as far as with my children, was supposed to be looking like, and what did they need from me in regards to time and attention. And I remember when my youngest was born, I had only asked for 6 weeks out to be home. And like literally the next day I called in and was just like, oh no, I'm going to need the full 3 months. And I knew in my heart I wanted more. So sometimes I get emotional still just thinking about it. But from there, I started, during that 3 months that I was out, I started researching how could I be home with my children more. I was married back then, now divorced, and I just started doing more analyzing of what was this parenting journey supposed to be looking like? What did it look like up until then? And what was I feeling inside me that it was supposed to look like? During those 3 months that I was home with my youngest daughter, the things that I did with my oldest daughter were things that I had never done before. We did more during those 3 months than I had done in her entire 7 years of being up until then. We spent more time together. We connected more because the space I was in mentally was different. I was evolving into a different space. So that is when I started researching homeschooling at that point, and also getting back into researching entrepreneurship, which I had already done some years before. It's in my blood naturally, but allowed myself to get distracted. So I started getting back into that again while I was home during that 3 months. And so just over the next 7 years, it was an evolution of continuing to look into entrepreneurship and continuing to look into homeschooling. And then in my observations, I was in different groups, listservs. Bless the Yahoo listservs. I discovered the topic of unschooling, and it was logical because by then I had already jumped into being an entrepreneur and trying to figure out how many different ways could I figure out how to stay home with my children as a single mom, because I was all they had. And as far as I was concerned, from what I had been learning, divine order saw that they really biologically would benefit best from two parents and being there for them. And considering that that was not the case, they needed me at home. And so when I discovered the topic of unschooling, it was logical for me. It just made perfect sense. And it made sense in opening up our day, considering that by the time I discovered unschooling, my oldest daughter was in 8th grade and my youngest daughter was in 1st grade. And my oldest daughter had been dealing with serious bullying for years, and her self-esteem was just almost non-existent. And I know how talented my children are, and I was trying to figure out how can we open our day up so that, since I'm this single mom who has 7 years between her children and she's trying to make the most of every day, but we were being bound by the school day and trying to highlight my oldest daughter's unique talents and skills and help her was becoming increasingly difficult. And had school the last year before we jumped into unschooling. And even with them being at the same school and at least being able to combine our travel time to get them there and bring them home, it still wasn't enough. And my youngest, she was already asking questions about how unfair it was that when she was sick, she only got to spend time with me away from school outside of the weekend when she was sick. And she couldn't enjoy that time. She was in the 1st grade and she was already saying stuff like this to me. And so discovering unschooling, it came at a divine time that made sense. And we took off. We took off from there. So my oldest daughter did not go back to traditional schooling throughout 9th through 12th. And my youngest, she did not go back to traditional schooling until she was in the last 6 weeks of 8th grade. And throughout that 7 years that we spent, it was super interesting. And one thing that I now wish I knew at the beginning that I know now, is that this journey evolves and deschooling is a lifelong process, particularly as we figure out how to address the conditioning and the programming that we have been receiving our entire lives around everything, not just what education looks like or what it should look like, but just around everything in general. And knowing now how important it is to stay in a space of embracing deschooling and recognizing that I know nothing. I'm always going to be learning, always going to be observing, always going to be reevaluating what I think I know, and staying open to the evolution of this journey. I wish I knew that at the beginning. I'm happy I know now, and I've been continuing to learn over the years. It has not been perfect, and there is no such thing as perfection. I've been learning how important it is to let go, hence why I wrote and recently released the book Let Go or Be Dragged, Learning the Healing Art of Letting Go, because letting go is the core of figuring out how to get through this life somewhat with sanity intact. So, you know,
naming all of those things. It's right where we're at with our discussions of like, we wish we had known some of these things and like put them into play earlier in the process of evolution. And just, you know, I know we also wanted to talk about this sort of review and moving into where you are now, moving into college, a whole different level.
Yeah.
It's so great for us at any level, whether we're just starting this process or we're 10 years in, to hear what you're sharing, because it is a sort of a spiraling process where we're moving forward, but we kind of keep also coming back to those embedded layers of programming and conditioning that are so pervasive and permeate everything.
Oh, go ahead, Deanna, sorry.
You had written learning that what you're most grateful for is learning how to allow your children to just be, right? And you talked about those results, and you know that feels like a key, right? And it seems so simple, but how we come to notice that, and then what we do to change that, you know, with awareness and evolution. If you want, as you talk about where you are now and reviewing and moving forward, I know myself and people watching would be interested to hear, because it's such a personal and unique journey, but it's also a collective one that we can learn from. So if you could share some of that.
Sure. So as far as letting them just be, that is still in process. I think it's important though to highlight for people who don't know anything about me, that the space I'm in right now, while it isn't my first time, because I have a 25-year-old daughter, so I have already been in a space, whereas I've had to mourn the end of an experience as far as raising a child, and see them as they evolve into their next space of life. I did not handle it gracefully the first time in any way, shape, or form. There was so much that I was still learning in regards to letting go. And unfortunately, our household 7 years ago still had a lot of oppressive components to it. And just like with myself, when I graduated from high school and I was in an oppressive household. Our household still had a lot of oppressive components to it. And my oldest daughter, she fled. She fled just like I did. And processing all of that, I have been doing that for the last 7 years and continue to. So here we are. Again, my youngest is in the process of transitioning to her next phase of life. And as much as I have been here before, I have not. Because as I'm sure you all have been learning, each of our children are unique individuals, just like each one of us are unique individuals. As much as we're connected, we're also unique individuals. And as much as society might try to encourage us to treat our children the same and compare them, and we cannot. That is not, I've not been finding that that's wise. And so being that I am in this space again, I'm grateful that the oppressive components of our household, I have been learning how to remove those components as I continue to de-school. And I'm grateful that this time around, my daughter doesn't want to leave because she's oppressed. And it's a really big deal because we're breaking a curse right now, and we're breaking some generational cycles. So I'm very grateful.
That is some powerful healing work.
Yeah, I'm very grateful, and I'm just open. I'm just open, continuing to heal and figure out how to repair our relationships and repair our bonds.
Thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for the beauty of sharing your story and like the gift that for being open, right? Not for just yourself and your kids, but
yeah,
to bring this forward and share it out in the world so that we can do this.
I think
encouraged by your.
I think this is how we help each other. It's not about trying to think that anybody needs to do anything exactly like how you do it. It's just about recognizing that if we're sharing what's going on, we never know what part of what we share can stand out to someone and flick a switch like, oh, wow, okay, I'm resonating with that. That's something that we've been going through or what have you. And thank you all for creating this space. So yeah, that's the space that we're in now, you know? We are just one day at a time, literally. My youngest actually just came back from her first solo trip to another city and another state. And she was gone for 4 nights. And it was another rites of passage. And it was beautiful to watch her, you know, start to strengthen those wings and recognize that as I am in this place again, I'm recognizing, you know what? They need us to be soft landing spaces as they get older and older in a different way than what we were when they were younger. And so it has been interesting to watch while she was on the trip, how she wanted to be able to talk to me when she wanted to be able to talk to me, while at the same time respectfully checking me when mama bird started to come out and ask her well, what time is this and what time? And then she just gracefully says, I got it. I got it. I'm good. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay. And then at the same time, processing for my own self while she was gone, here's another taste of what it's going to be like as this young goddess moves on to her next phase. What are you going to do? You know? And I was intentional while she was gone, about checking in with myself and taking my time with my schedule, and making sure that I allowed plenty of room for rest, continuing to trust her intuition, my intuition, while also enjoying myself. And that's a big part of the space that I'm in right now, is remembering to celebrate our journey, because we made it. We're here. And I remember years ago, so many questions as I would talk about unschooling. And I realized I needed to get to a space of, what if it does work out? What if it turns out dope? You know, what if I can hold space for that? What if our family can hold space for that? What if this doesn't need to be an experiment? What if this just can be our life? You know what I'm saying? And how about that? And what if we can just take this one day at a time, 1 second at a time? And what if we just keep doing that? And that's what we're doing. And it hasn't been easy, but so what? You know, we are deprogramming and deconditioning and deschooling every day. And I found out it's not just us as adults. Our children are in this world. And even as much as we have created our unschooling bubble, it doesn't matter, because they're still in this world. And there's deconditioning and deprogramming and deschooling that has to happen with them, and continues to, even though they're more connected to the source than we are. All right. As we have been able to get into this unschooling phase in an earlier part of their life than for ourselves, there's still deschooling and deprogramming happening with them as they live in this world every day, and they're accessing all sorts of outside energy. And it's been important to stay aware of that and allow space and grace for that, and embrace that that's happening, and be okay with that, and try to find a peaceful place to be about it all. um yeah, that is where the least amount of trauma um is happening, when we stay in that place, when I stay in that place as a parent. um yeah.
I think I'm gonna jump in, but I just need to pause for a second because, whew, what an honor to be sitting here with you. First of all, I really want to say I'm deeply honored that you are sharing your story. Your story is, I treasure it. I just want you to know. It's a treasure on my day, and it's a treasure on my life as I continue this work. And you really just rained on us, just all these nuggets of beauty. And I feel the hydration of all of that goodness. So I'm deeply, deeply grateful right now for that. I really just wanted to catch that moment of realization that you've had around what it means to do this work, which happens so early in your journey. And even through that realization, what I understand is that you discovered and came to know and came to clarity and discernment that the historical trauma, the historical pain, the barriers that this culture, this society that we're coming up in has created for us, is inevitably being passed on to the next generation. And you so beautifully laid that timeline out for us. You know, you laid out what it looked like for you in your own life and in the life of your daughters. And I think that that's really the treasure that I'm capturing right now, is that evolution really can happen through the work of noticing, of really being present, a present observer. And I really honor that you did that. As a single mother, with all the pressures of life, with all that you were having to contend with in your own body, in your own mind, in your own spirit, that you had that ability, of the bird's eye view of your experience and how it was manifesting generationally. So that you were able to, at a point in your journey, make a very subtle but really poignant, really huge and incredibly effective switch, right? And the reason why that touches me so deeply is because I too experienced that, and I resonate with that moment so deeply, with the tears, with the pain, with the grief, with all of it, right? The guilt, everything that then we are left with to move through, and like you're saying, to learn to let go of. That it is no light work. It's what I really want to say, and why I really honor your story, because it's no light work when you decide, one, that you're going to move a new direction in your generational timeline, like literally pause the script, take a deep understanding of what has happened up to this point, and then decide that something different needs to go on now. And I am going to be that change maker. I am going to be the leader. I am going to find the resources within me, my community, my space, the earth, to make that transition. And still have to let go. Right? And still have to, to carry that energy so strongly, but still be in the process of the letting go. And I just like, whoa, that just really opened a lot for me. And then I wanted to really name the intersections that I heard you speak on regarding deschooling and deconditioning, that I feel is all interwoven with this piece of letting go. And for me, how I translate that into my own experience is that the word decolonizing for me is really big in my own personal work, and how I interweave it to unschooling. Because, and I was talking to Deanna and Lisa not too long ago, just about how it's becoming clear to me that unschooling is still born out of a westernized individual capitalist context, right? And so for people who come from other cultures, we're still having to contend with what that means, right? What is that kind of freedom? What is that kind of independence when you come from a context where it's post-colonial, right?
Are we worthy of it? Are we worthy of it?
Oh my gosh. Yes.
I've certainly experienced it and come up against it. And that, I feel, like you said, it's actually been some of the most important work. And it's one of the reasons why I finally was just like, yo, I need to just go ahead and put this online, because we are worthy. Our skin doesn't need to look like any color. or we don't necessarily need to think any certain kind of way to be worthy of this kind of life for ourselves and our children. Whatever, in spite of what we've been told and what we've been sold for generations.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's really the powerful point right there, to come to an understanding that that was actually the way we knew how to be. Like that technology we have from our indigenous ancestors, that's a technology that lives in our genetic code that was constantly being erased systemically, right? And so to be able to be in a place to reclaim that is so deeply powerful and empowering. And then to be able to still through that be mindful of how our children have to navigate the same society that is still going to send them the messages that they are not worthy, right? Or question their freedom, or their all of that.
Yeah.
So
Even
for me, I think
even the piece about whether or not you can unschool, or let alone homeschool, as a single parent, working parent, or if you had two parents that had to be constantly working, like that conditioning, or the illusion that you can't, work, that you can work unchained from a desk.
How about that?
So, I mean, this is for me a highlight, because it's personal. I have a sister who is a single mom of two, 6-year-old twins, and she's having to do the hustle. And you are an inspiration that you have done it so creatively and with a purpose, with a passion, with a soul purpose, and with finding the creativity and joy in your work, it seems. I would love to hear more about how, just anything you want to share will be an inspiration to people listening, but that piece is really significant, in the decolonizing, the deconstructing of those conditioning, programming that you can't do. You can't raise your children in a liberated way.
Well, for me, I think back to the fact that I was a teen mom, and even before I started becoming more conscious when my youngest daughter was born, I already had been in a place of taking my daughter with me to work. I had my oldest daughter. I used to be a computer help desk specialist, so that was my past life. And I couldn't afford daycare, and I was blessed to be a travel tech who was able to. I was a Dell certified system engineer, so I would actually dealt with warranty work for Northern Virginia. So I was traveling around, popping open laptops and servers and replacing parts. And I had my daughter with me at one point because that's what we had to do. And the type of job that I had, it was like, I just was looking like, you know what? We're going to figure out how to make this work because I want you with me anyway. And you want to be with me, and I can't really afford this daycare situation. So it started back from there. And I lost that job. And the reason why is because one of the calls that I went on, a young man, he broke a piece that I installed, but instead of owning up to it, he said he was distracted because I had my daughter with me. And it was like my supervisor at the time, he knew that wasn't the case. He knew that was a lie, but he also had his hands tied. And from there, all those years ago, I've just been trying to figure it out. Like, no, I don't accept this. And I even, at one point, all those years ago, I came up with a group called Single Mamapreneurs. And I had a website, and it was a movement that I started essentially just to find other single mom business owners like myself, who were trying to figure out how to make it all work. And I just felt it inside of me that there was a way, and that what has been driving me throughout the years. And it's just become more and more refined. I have been an emergency nanny and babysitter. Um, I'm a massage therapist and had a mobile massage spa company. And then I created a children's department just because of my children. So we started doing children's spa parties, and they got in there and helped me. And, it has been wonderful. I learned how to paint faces because I wanted to be at these festivals and conferences, whereas my children were enjoying themselves. And this was a way for me to be able to make money while we were there. And then, once they became business owners, once I pulled them out of school, and my youngest, she wrote a book, and my oldest, she illustrated a coloring book to go with it. I basically started taking the same type of business mindset and applying it to their businesses. So we just been making it do what it do. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just always been in me to know it's possible. And I'm going to figure out how. And that's what I've been doing. And I've just been continuing to refine it and enjoying ourselves in the process as much as we can. Yeah.
And now you're inspiring others
Yeah.
and guiding others.
Yeah.
You are such an inspiration.
Thank
oh my
you.
goodness. Lisa, I'm sure you have a lot to say that you're sitting on.
This has just been such an incredible conversation. You just shared so much and been so open and authentic, and I'm so grateful. Yeah, there's been so much. I feel like before you talked about being a soft landing for your kids. And I feel like through all that you're saying, it seems like you are also a soft landing for yourself.
I've been learning. I've been learning.
Yeah, I think is the hardest. I mean, for me personally, that's the hardest bit of this, and it's like, right, like you said, while our kids still live in the world, they are closer to the source, and they are much more okay with kind of figuring it out moment by moment. And like the most of the work has been being able to join them there. And one of the things that we started doing, or I started doing to be more of a soft landing for my kids, which again kind of reminded me of how you're describing it, is now when my kids start talking to me, I remind myself to say, oh, am I listening or am I problem solving? Because before it was like, okay, I'm going to tell you how we can best work this out. Like, I know I'm going to tell you. And it's like from this place of wanting to be helpful, but ultimately it's control. It's about telling them the best way, the most efficient way. And none of those things are even true. Like that might be what I think is the best way, but even my idea of what's best is like, it's marred by the conditioning and all of the things that I've been through. So it was funny because even the other day, my daughter started telling me something and I immediately jumped in sort of to be like, well, this is what we can do. And she's like, Mom, you are just listening right now. And it was just so great to have her just give it back to me. But it was like, yeah, thanks for reminding me, because ultimately that's what I want to be. I want to be the soft landing for whatever is happening, because that's all we can do. It's the only thing that you actually can sort of control or give to them, because everything else is they're them and they are experiencing this world from their viewpoint, and we're just here to like hold a safe space, hold a safe container that they can come back to when necessary.
Yeah, I agree. Prioritizing self-care. Only over the last few years have I really, even though, I have been a holistic practitioner for over 20 years, only over the last few years, particularly once I had a nervous breakdown in 2017 and was admitted into the psychiatric unit, got diagnosed with PTSD, bipolar disorder, anxiety, and depression, did I really start connecting the dots that, you know what? I am supposed to be prioritizing my self-care so that my cup stays full, so that I have the energy and the space to be able to be here for my babies. And I had to learn, and I'm still learning, that intentionally prioritizing self-care is, that's something else I wish I had known at the beginning. It is an integral part of this journey. Absolutely. And then in that, we are showing our children that we are intentionally taking care of ourselves. We're modeling that to them, because obviously we know we can always show somebody something better than we can tell them. And as far as I'm concerned with unschooling, it's all about, what do we do as the parents? What are we modeling? What do they see us doing? Do they see us taking care of ourselves? Do they see us prioritizing our self-care? Do they see us setting boundaries? Okay. Do they see us advocating for ourselves? Do they see us saving ourselves? I mean, that's the acronym self-care that I came up with, saving ourselves, you know, and just taking care of ourselves in general, loving up on ourselves, forgiving ourselves, cutting out negative people out of our lives, advocating for ourselves, figuring out what does it look like to respect ourselves individually. We figure it out, not allowing anybody else to tell us what it looks like to do that for ourselves. Embracing, our journey as our own individually, and figuring out what excites us. What do we like as parents? Our children being able to see us digging to, what do we like? What do we want to learn more about? I think that's one of the reasons why unschooling stood out as such a choice for our family, because my children have always seen me dig into whatever, I wanted to learn and teach myself or figure out how to do it or whatever. So for me, logically, it was just like, why wouldn't I see that my children get the opportunity and space to be able to do the exact same thing? I want them to have the space to be able to do the exact same thing that I do. And how dope is it that they can learn how to do this and become comfortable with trusting their intuition, seeing that I'm trusting their intuition, empowering them to trust their intuition, so that they can, feel confident to dig into whatever they want. And just like we as adults have freedom to quit if they don't feel like being bothered anymore. Okay? Like, we get to do that. So why not create that space for them to be able to do the same thing? It has been wonderful, to continue to process what that looks like and evolve into these different spaces. Respecting, our freedom of speech and body autonomy. I didn't grow up with that. I didn't know what that looked like.
Well, so, I was gonna say, I want to add, even all these things you're naming, like in the deschooling process, I feel like most of the places where we're having a hard time is where our autonomy wasn't supported. And so when we have these kids who are assuming that they're going to get to do what they want, and we're like, even if it's not so direct a link in your mind, like when it's like, oh gosh, you're feeling tense about it, it's usually something that you didn't get the choice. And so all of these moments, all this deschooling, all this deconditioning, sometimes it's hard to see our kids being so free and being so confident. It takes, again, right, like the self-care to be able to be like, oh, I'm feeling this anxiety or anger or resentment or whatever it is, and being able to pick it apart. So it's not actually your kid or what, it's you, it's me. It's ongoing, like you said at the very beginning, knowing that it never ends, and it's something to keep on, it's going to keep on happening, but also to like welcome it. Like, yes, now I get to like pick apart a new thing. Now I get to become closer to my authentic self. Now I get to experience more joy. I want that for everybody.
Me too.
You.
Me too. But everybody's got to want it for themselves, right?
Mhm.
Everybody's got to want it for themselves. We've also been, addressing what it looks like to return to school or begin traditional school as an unschooler. So, we dealt with that as well with my youngest daughter over the years from second grade to eighth grade, sometimes saying, I think I want to go. And then having the freedom to say, no, I'll miss you too much. And then that kept happening. And then eighth grade, seventh grade, she really started talking about returning to traditional school a lot more because she started becoming a lot clearer about her passions, which she's had the space to all along, and that is animals. And she started thinking about structured schooling and college, and also just like, everywhere on TV and in the books, all they do is talk about school. Everybody's always talking about school. I want to see what all this is about. And she had gone through a Ghanaian rites of passage program right before she decided to go back to traditional schooling. So it was definitely a divine space. She started like a couple of weeks after she graduated from the rites of passage program. And it was like, I never felt more like an unschooler than when she went back, because it was like, oh yeah, so this is what it looks like to truly have these feelings inside of you as an adult of, oh my Lord, I do not want you there. I do not want you there. And saying, but I have been raising you to respect and trust your intuition. And if your intuition is saying you need to be there, I trust. You trust, I trust. Let's do it. Let's do it. Work with me. we had to do some serious boundary making for that to work, and we had lots of conversations. We continued throughout those 3 years. But what a beautiful experience it was for her to be able to do that and not have to. And that was one of the things that I sat her teachers and administrators and police officers and everybody, okay, in that school. I sat them down when I was getting ready to enroll her so that they could understand, unlike 99.99% of the children here, this is a child who doesn't have to be here. She is only here because she absolutely wants to be. I look at you all as an extension of our village. I trust that you will appreciate the privilege of having this child in your class. If she wants to leave, you might want to do your best to make sure that you being disrespectful is not a reason why, because she's gonna walk whenever she wants. And she gratefully allowed me to have that conversation. When she went back in the last 6 weeks of eighth grade, and when she started high school for ninth grade. And then after that, she was just like, I don't need you to have this conversation anymore, mommy. I got this. And I'm like, all right, let's rock and roll then. And that's what we've been continuing to do. And how beautiful was it at the beginning of last year when she was like, I'm done. I'm not going back because I don't have to. I've learned everything I needed to learn in regards to this energy, in regards to this experience. And she was like, senior year, I'm not doing it. And I'm like, don't play with me. For real. And she's like, no. So no coincidence that pandemic kicked off a couple of months later. I just remember saying, you knew something, didn't you? Because it looks like it wasn't going to be anywhere near what it had been in those 3 years that you had gone and gotten all those different lessons. Wow, all the lessons that she has gotten in those 3 years of being in traditional school, it has really reminded me, yeah, these babies need to be able to trust their intuition because they know what's good for them. They know, they do. Even though we weren't taught that, they know, they really do. And it's beautiful to see it and to continue to figure out how to hold space for it, as well as for ourselves. Yeah.
You've held such beautiful space for your children and been
I've
such
been working.
an amazing model. I mean, it's such a privilege to hear you share those moments of power, of autonomy, of guidance, of container creating for
Yeah.
your children. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I've been working. And even with the
So
college,
clear.
even with the college, it has been interesting. I know you all see it. It's such a big topic when people learn about unschooling. Oh my gosh. What about college? And up until now, it wasn't really that much of a thought because I held space for my oldest to do as she felt, and she didn't feel that college was for her. And I'm like, I ain't mad at you, baby. That's you. That's how you feel, then so be it. You certainly don't absolutely have to have anything in this world in order for you to be who you want to be. Only you can decide for yourself as you process and progress through life individually. Okay, I want to do this. Am I able to teach myself? Am I able to go on YouTube? Am I able to get mentors? Do I want to go to college? It's individually up to them. And we have been working through now that my youngest has, decided that as of right now, because we always just leaving everything open, you know. But as she was starting to start that whole college process, it has been wonderful to be able to remind her that colleges are businesses. And without students, they don't have a business. Without money from students, they don't have a business. And we don't look at things from a perspective of, ooh, she got accepted to this college, she got accepted to that college. No, we look at it like, ooh, this college wants the privilege of her presence because, yeah, you know? So with that in mind, that has really helped this college experience. It has helped take a lot of pressure off her shoulders. It has helped remind her of who she is with or without college, with or without any outside anything, which is what I've been trying to communicate to these babies.
Yeah, we could dive deep in that topic alone. We're coming up to our, we started a little late, so we're coming up to our hour now. And I just wanted to check in with you, Evon, and see if there's anything that you'd like to share about anything, but also about how you work with clients, with families.
May I interject quickly?
Yeah.
Want to say that I think we need to do a part 2.
That's exactly what I was going to say too.
Yes, I do have a time. I have a personal time constraint because I need to leave at 12:30 from my house and need to prep for that. So that's my own personal selfish reason. Yeah. But the next selfish reason is that there's more, Evon. There's more there.
Yeah.
And I really want to honor the space and time for that more. Because this was so incredibly beautiful. I'm just like, okay, we need to do more.
I would love to have you at any time you want.
Okay.
I'd love to conversate about these topics. It's so deep and rich. And we can dive deep into any number of those threads that we touched upon.
I did, you were asking about just um, things to share, you know, or tips or what have you. The biggest things that I have to say to my clients and my students when it comes to um, this work as an unschooling lifestyle coach is treasure the time that we have with our babies. Treasure it. Trust our instincts. Um, and do our best not to project our conditioning onto our babies. Do our best not to compare our children to each other if we have more than one, or to anyone else's, and do our best not to compare our journeys, because each of our journeys are unique. And be gentle with ourselves and be gentle with our children. Um, those are the things that have stood out the most for me when I reflect, as I continue to reflect on what has been most important so far. And when I coach, we're starting from those places, as well as, are you an unschooler? Are you even an unschooler? Before you are looking to see about choosing this for your children, are you an unschooler? So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Evon. Thank you for
You're
your
welcome.
time. And I look
Thank
forward
you.
to our next conversation. It's beautiful to
Likewise.
know you and get to know you.
Likewise. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
All right.